Washington, D.C., the heart of American governance and decision-making. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has struck down the Trump-era tariffs, fundamentally reshaping American trade policy. This decision marks a pivotal moment in the history of U.S. trade relations. The ruling places new limits on a president's authority to use national security as a justification for broad economic measures, setting a precedent for future administrations. This is a direct statement about the balance of power between Congress and the executive branch, emphasizing the need for checks and balances in trade decisions. For years, businesses and consumers have faced uncertainty from trade disputes. Today, the court has charted a new course, offering hope for stability and growth. International markets surged with optimism, while domestic industries that benefited from protectionist measures braced for impact, anticipating changes in their operations. The court found that imposing tariffs on key allies without a clear, direct national security threat exceeded presidential authority, a significant limitation on executive power. The decision signals a return to Congress as the primary architect of trade policy, urging lawmakers to take a more active role in shaping the nation's economic future. For businesses, this offers relief from unpredictable tariffs and a chance to rebuild global supply chains, fostering international cooperation and economic growth. The legal framework supporting those tariffs is gone. Now, Congress must reclaim its constitutional role in shaping economic destiny, ensuring fair and balanced trade practices. The decision is a victory for free trade advocates and a challenge to lawmakers to lead on trade, encouraging a new era of collaboration and innovation in trade policy. Chief Justice Roberts' majority opinion zeroed in on the misuse of emergency powers by the executive branch, emphasizing the need for clear limits and accountability. The court ruled that the executive failed to demonstrate a direct, imminent threat from steel and aluminum imports, especially those coming from long-standing U.S. allies rather than adversaries. A generalized concern for the health of domestic industry, the court said, is not enough to trigger the use of extraordinary presidential powers meant for true emergencies. The ruling preserves the president's ability to act decisively in a genuine crisis, but blocks the use of emergency powers for routine economic protectionism or political gain. Domestically, the decision curtails what critics have long called an imperial presidency in matters of trade, restoring a balance of power. Future presidents are now clearly barred from unilaterally imposing sweeping tariffs without explicit and specific congressional authorization, reinforcing the role of the legislative branch. The decision also reassures U.S. allies that American trade rules are stable and not subject to the unpredictable whims of a single leader, strengthening international trust. The 6-3 split among the justices highlights deep and ongoing ideological divisions over the scope of presidential power in economic and national security matters. The ruling sets a powerful precedent. Any future use of national security as a justification for tariffs must be tightly justified, thoroughly reviewed, or go through Congress for approval. The executive branch must now build consensus and work with Congress to shape trade policy, just as the Constitution's framers intended, ensuring greater transparency and accountability. The contested tariffs were based on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. Passed in 1977, IEEPA was meant for targeted responses to extraordinary foreign threats, not broad economic policy. The Trump administration used IEEPA and Section 232 to declare a national emergency over steel and aluminum imports, arguing it threatened national security. This interpretation turned IEEPA into a tool for industrial policy, allowing sweeping tariffs on allies. Critics argued this stretched the law far beyond its intent. A downturn in an industry is not an emergency. The Supreme Court has now clarified, general economic concerns cannot justify emergency powers. The president retains IEEPA authority for true crises, like sanctions on rogue states, but not for reshaping trade unilaterally. The emergency is back in the Emergency Powers Act. Congress, not the president, must lead on trade. The legal battle was about the limits of presidential power. The government argued the president should have broad discretion to define national security, especially in economics. Opponents said the tariffs were economic protectionism, not genuine security measures. Evidence showed the Department of Defense did not see a real threat to supply. If any economic issue could be called an emergency, Congress's power would be meaningless. The government cited broad statutory language. Challengers pointed to legislative history and intent. The Supreme Court sided with limits. Not every economic downturn is a national emergency. The decision draws a line between real security threats and economic policy. The president's role is vital, but must fit within the constitutional framework that gives Congress power over commerce. The tariffs had real consequences for American businesses and families. Companies faced higher costs, making products less competitive and forcing layoffs. Uncertainty made long-term planning impossible, hurting investment and growth. Consumers paid more for everyday goods, squeezing family budgets. Studies showed the cost of tariffs was borne almost entirely by American importers and consumers. While some domestic producers benefited, many more industries that used those materials suffered. For every job saved in steel, multiple jobs were threatened elsewhere. The tariffs fractured the business community and created economic winners and losers. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries devastated American farmers and exporters. Trade wars proved mutually damaging, with no clear winners. The pain was shared by workers and consumers on all sides. The legal challenge began in the Court of International Trade, with dozens of companies suing over the tariffs. Early court decisions favored the government, citing deference to presidential authority in national security. Plaintiffs shifted focus to the constitutional question: was the executive usurping Congress's power over commerce? This argument caught the attention of legal scholars and the Supreme Court. The court's decision to hear the case signaled its national importance. Arguments before the justices were the culmination of years of legal and economic debate. The final ruling was not just about tariffs, it was about the limits of presidential power in the modern era. The case set a new constitutional precedent for trade. The Supreme Court's decision is a powerful reaffirmation of checks and balances. It curbs the steady expansion of presidential power in economic policy. By narrowing the definition of national security, the court closes a major loophole. Issues like economic competitiveness can't be used as pretexts for emergency powers. Presidents must now go to Congress to protect domestic industries. The ruling empowers Congress to reclaim its constitutional role in trade. Lawmakers must now engage in the complexities of trade policy and be accountable for outcomes. This rebalancing makes sweeping, unilateral trade shifts less likely. Businesses and international partners can expect more stability and predictability. The era of trade policy by executive fiat may be over. The future of U.S. trade will be shaped by a more collaborative, deliberative process. The Supreme Court's decision triggered immediate global and domestic reactions. Financial markets surged, especially in industries hit by tariffs. The dollar dipped as prospects for lower import costs grew. International exchanges rallied, while U.S. business groups praised the ruling. Domestic steel and aluminum industries warned of job losses and renewed foreign competition. The White House criticized the decision, arguing it weakens presidential power to protect jobs. In Congress, free trade advocates celebrated, while protectionists vowed to push for new powers. The ruling has elevated trade from a partisan fight to a constitutional debate. The focus now shifts to Congress. Can lawmakers forge a new, bipartisan path for American trade? The coming months will test Washington's ability to lead on this critical issue. The Supreme Court's decision is more than just a policy reversal. It fundamentally resets the balance of power within the federal government, marking a pivotal moment in American governance. The ruling makes it clear that Congress, not the president, holds the constitutional authority to regulate foreign commerce, reaffirming the separation of powers at the heart of our democracy. By sharply limiting the president's emergency powers, the court ensures that future presidents cannot unilaterally reshape the nation's economy or impose sweeping trade measures without congressional approval. The executive branch must now begin the complex process of dismantling the existing tariff regime, a task that will take time, involve multiple agencies, and almost certainly spark new political battles and negotiations. As a result, industries across the country will intensify their lobbying efforts, urging Congress to either protect their interests or open markets, setting the stage for a fresh round of heated debates and legislative maneuvering. In the long run, this decision forces a more collaborative and transparent approach to trade policy, requiring lawmakers from both parties to work together and find common ground. Presidents will now have to engage with Congress to build consensus, leading to policies that are not only more stable and durable, but also more reflective of the will of the people. The era of emergency powers as a primary economic tool is coming to a close, signaling a significant shift in how America manages its economic challenges. The court hasn't chosen free trade or protectionism. It has simply clarified who gets to decide: Congress, the body that represents the American people and their diverse interests. Now, the next move belongs to our political leaders, who must come together to forge a new consensus and define America's evolving role in the global economy for the 21st century.